Hi folks, before we begin an examination of a second very important theoretical model developed by sociologists to explain deviance, I wanted to backtrack just a bit with respect to the previous lesson when we examined Merton's structural strain model of deviance. You might remember that he identified 5 responses having to do again with the relationship between the approved goals and the approved ways. I came across this and I wanted to share it with you, developed by Dr. Hala from Queens College. And I really think this is a terrific way to highlight the various responses that Merton emphasized in his model. So take a moment and study the responses of conformity, ritualism, retreatism, innovation, and rebellion. Now, in this lesson, we're going to examine a model developed by Sutherland. Also, Creasy supported him in the research. It has a variety of different titles. More often than not, it's referred to as the differential association model, but it's sometimes also called the cultural transmission theory. Now, if you'll remember, Merton's approach model theory, the strain model, focus on the structure of society. This model highlights a social process, specifically again that like any form of behavior, deviance can be learned through interaction with others. Now the principal part of the learning takes place in intimate, primary-oriented groups. And Sutherland emphasized that one becomes deviant because of an excess of definitions favorable to violating the laws. Now you want to remember that both he and Creasy focused a great deal of their attention on juvenile offenders. Back in the old days, what were called juvenile delinquents. Now, I was at the bottom of the 17th page of your study guide. I'm now on the 18th page of your third study guide. And like Merton's model, this model is supported by a lot of good information in chapter 6 in the text. I want to elaborate on the theory a bit more because that last statement I left with you, one becomes deviant because of an excess of definitions favorable to violating the law. If you want to put it in another way, the argument is this: the more that we are exposed to those breaking the law, to those committing deviance, the more apt we are to become deviant ourselves. So the theory simply states that interacting with people who break the rules, who view the rules as inconsequential, insignificant, that's going to socialize you and me to break the rules as well. Now, Sutherland himself was quick to point out it's not quite as simple as it sounds. His argument was that the learning process is going to be significantly impacted by these particular elements. I want you to examine each one of them for just a moment. How frequent is a relationship? Is this something that's casual, or is it something that, again, has marked your life? And again, how long has it lasted? Is this short term, or is this something that's been going on for years and years and years? And it's something you're doing frequently, day in and day out. Likewise, how early in your life did this begin? Is this something just, again, a couple of years old? Or is it something you've been around and interacted with for a long period of time. And then exactly how important is the relationship itself? Now, the whole basis for this approach, that we can learn deviance, underlies the penal system. When people are sent to prison, sent to jail, the whole focus is on, if they can learn deviance, what's the best approach? Well, encourage them to unlearn it. So rehabilitation has long been a focus of the penal system. Now, some critics would argue, well, it works just the opposite. You get sent to prison, you may very well have your deviant ways reinforced by what you learned there. Now, there are numerous examples. One that I came across that is, again, pretty interesting was a study done by Williams. And he focused on a group of teens who sold cocaine in a neighborhood in New York City. They were recruited by major drug suppliers because they knew the kids, some of them younger than 14, if they were caught, they wouldn't end up being sent to prison because they were underage. Now, Williams went on to point out that the teens were influenced to pick up these jobs because of the fact that most of them didn't think they had a real chance of ever securing a high-paying job. And the job of, again, by and large, selling drugs in various areas had the lure of quick and easy money. And once they got involved in the drug network, they learned job skills in pretty much the same way as anyone would learn those skills in any jobs. Actually, Williams makes this point. Success in a deviant job is measured pretty much the same way as in so-called mainstream jobs. You got to please the boss. You've got to meet accomplished goals. You've got to be focused and dedicated. You've got to get along with your fellow workers. But again, one of the things I've long admired about Sutherland is the fact that he was critical of his own model. But before we look at the shortcomings, there's some other examples that I might use to highlight this particular model. Do any of you recognize this character from Harry Potter? Draco Malfoy? Okay. Well, again, deviance is learned behavior. If you've followed, again, either reading the Harry Potter books or the films themselves, you know he grew up in a home known for deviance. And a particular film that I've long liked is Goodfellas, in which the character played by Ray Liotta grows up more or less, starting in his early adolescence, in organized crime. And basically he learns, he buys into the themes of organized crime. Now, if you go back to your study guide to page 17, there are some key limitations that I want you to remember specifically about this particular model. Again, it's a very interesting model, but like all models that we've been talking about, it has some significant limitations. First and foremost, and again, I have messed up, so let's go over to, and I apologize, the 18th page of your third study guide. And that's smack dab in the middle. You'll see the limitations themselves. Right off, okay? You can recognize this. Can there be people who have regular and involved interaction with deviants that don't become deviant themselves? Can you think of any? How about some professionals? Well, judges, lawyers, police officers, counselors, probation officials. But then you can go one step further. What about family members and friends? They may regularly interact with a deviant person, but they won't become deviant themselves. Furthermore, the model has been criticized by some as being highly deterministic. The suggestion is, once you fall in with folks who regard deviant behavior as right, good, and proper, you can look back and kiss your rear end goodbye. You're done. Okay? As a matter of fact, I think most of you know better than that, because it's entirely possible once you become affiliated with a bunch of people or a group of people who engage in deviant behavior, might that kick you out? I'm not really sure this is what I want to do. I'm going to bail. Okay? And you want to remember this model is nothing really new. I'd almost bet you've heard versions of it from family members, like mom and dad, or perhaps even grandparents. If you fall in with the wrong crowd, you're going to end up regretting it. Or as my grandfather used to tell me, well, if you lay with dogs, you're going to get fleas. So this is a variation of the old bad companions model. Now, also, those 4 processes that were noted by Sutherland, intensity, duration, that sort of thing, okay, those are very hard to accurately measure scientifically. And again, the model doesn't really explain why did deviance originate in the first place. It doesn't go there. It focuses more on how you and I might very well end up becoming deviant ourselves. And another criticism that has been applied to the model, it doesn't really explain sort of solitary or individual deviance, okay, such as self-injurers. Those folks that are sometimes referred to as cutters, okay, they mutilate their bodies in some form or fashion by cutting, by burning, etc. It's by and large a solitary act. Now, some authorities have suggested that with modern and complex digital communication, could self-injurers start websites or at least create connections that might reinforce their behavior? We'll have to wait and see. Fascinating model in a lot of ways. So deviance, remember, the basis for the model, can be learned like any other behavior. In the next lesson, we're going to examine another key model, sociological model or theory of deviance, the labeling approach. Until then.